Basic Coding Lab, Part 1. For starters, make sure you're in the right program. There's two icons on the desktop. Both look similar, but they're totally different. The one you want to use is titled Robot C for Vex Robotics 4.0. Okay, here's our little welcome screen. Let's first begin by getting a blank screen, a blank template to build our coding on. And to find that, your screens may not match mine exactly, but just kind of listen along, follow along, and we'll get you there. So I'm going to go to File, Open Sample Program. Your screen will look like this here. It should open up a menu with a whole bunch of folders inside of it, and find the one called PLTW. Open that one. Here you have two templates: backup in case one gets ruined, and the actual template. Pick the one called template and open it. What we have here is our blank coding screen. Not quite as exciting as that program we used last year for 6th grade coding, but it works as well, if not better. Over on the left, this is a bank of all of our code words. They're all kind of in menus. On the right, here I have my actual programming screen where I do all my coding. And on the bottom down here, this is a little bit of our, this is where we do all the, any errors occur in our program to be stated down here. This is called the compiler of errors section. All right, two things you want to do every time you log in is the program defaults back to factory settings. So you got to change two things. Change how this program communicates to our robot, and change the format of the language. So communication mode, and it's called platform type. Here's how it's done. Every time you log in every day, it's the first thing you do for every time. Under robot, find the one called Vex Cortex communication mode, and make sure you have the one called USB only checked. Mine is. If not, make sure it's checked by clicking on it. That one's done. Okay, next is change how the way the language is set up. It's a platform type. So it's robot, platform type. Make sure the one here checked is the natural language, project lead the way. These up here, don't worry about. These are fine. This is the big one right here, this natural language, project lead the way. That's checked, so I'm done. I'm ready to go. Okay, project title. Type in Basic Coding Lab Part 1. If you guys see now, it's trying to give me some, I type in one letter, it gives me a whole bank of suggested items to put in there. And what those are is, these are code words. Saying, hey, here's other code words that begin with the letter L. Do you want to write these code words? In this case, I don't. I just want to type in my little notes here. So Basic Coding Lab Part 1. Team members, type in all of your names from your group. And type in today's date. Whoa. And then section, we are quarter number 2. Okay, done. Task description. This is kind of a little bit of an overview of the lab, like what it all is going to entail. I open up my lab, Basic Coding Lab sheet here. Here it is. Looks kind of like the last sheet we did for the mechanical gears lab. Same kind of rubric on top. Some directions down below here. It's got 3 little labs, a part 1, a part 2, and a part 3. Here's a brief description. Spot for you to initial, a rubric score, and a spot for me to initial and comment. Page 2, here's our task descriptions. Our Basic Coding Lab Part 1. It says you need to program and code the robot that'll start a motor, run for a speed of some unknown speed for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds have elapsed, the motor will stop, the program will end. All right, so what if I just kind of copy that, go back to my program, and paste it. So here is my task description. Okay, so I gotta program a robot, start a motor, let it run for 5 seconds, and then it shuts off. All right, so the motor is turning on, the motor is running, the motor is stopping. So all the task description is just a sentence or two describing the whole coding process. All right, next, pseudocode. This means false code or practice code. In this case, I'm taking my task description, putting it into a little more of a code format. It's just to kind of figure out what I all have to do. In this case, I want to do 3 main things here. I want to start a motor. It's going to run for 5 seconds, and the motor's going to stop. So basically, I have 3 commands: a start, letting it run, and a stop. Okay, let's begin by coding here. Down below here in this task main, this here is kind of the way it's saying, hey, here's a brand new code to read, computer. Begin from reading here. This stuff up here is all kind of in a green color. These are all of our notes just to ourselves. So when we look at the program, we know what's going on. But down here below task main, this is where the program actually happens. So task main, leave this alone. This is the code word that tells the computer to begin reading our codes here. Line 17 for me has a small little bracket. This kind of is our like page 1 of our code, or our line 1 of our code. So I always begin by going 1 line below it. This chunk in green here is a little note. I'm just going to delete it off because I don't need that. Okay. I gotta find a start motor command. Up my code bank, motors makes the most sense to have. This be my motors command, but the motors command doesn't really have the motor code we need. Okay, so instead, under natural language, this is our go-to for all of our labs, natural language, is I want to have my motors move, or movement, and I want to have this one here called start motor. So I'm going to click and drag this out and drop it on line 18. Start motor. Okay, it's asking for a motor port and a motor speed. This will fill out later. This one here is done. Start is done. Now it says run for 5 seconds. This is going to be a wait command. I want the motor to start. I'm going to wait and then turn the motor off. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait in time, not milliseconds. Waiting in time. Click, drag, drop. Okay. And last comes this thing here called stop the motor. Stop motor. Click, drag, drop. Okay, done. The code is written. Now I've got to edit the code and fine-tune the code. It's asking for a motor port, saying what's my motor's name. I don't have a motor yet. I haven't set it up yet. And a motor speed. All right, let's get my motor set up first. I'm going to go up top of my screen, the thing here called Motors and Sensor Setup, and pick the Motors tab. This depends on what motor you have. We have 2 kinds of motors. Some motors have 2 wires. Some have 3 wires. I'm going to use a 2-wire motor for this lab. Motor's name. Here's how to give our motor a name. Let's make sure, of course, it's Miss Johnson approved. I'll call my motor Steve. And the motors we have here are the VEX 393 motors. We don't have these. We don't have those. Fun if we did, but we don't. All we have are the VEX 393 motors. And I'm going to skip all this stuff, and I'm going to apply that and hit OK. So what happened now is my program said, hey, you configured a motor in port number 1. It's called Steve, and it's a VEX 393 motor. Okay, let's edit. So my motor is not called motor port. My motor is called Steve. Here's spelling counts. If I misspell this word, it won't connect to my motor. The program will not cooperate. The task description called for a run for a speed of an unknown speed. Okay. As you saw in the vocab, our motors go from speeds of 0 to 127. I'm going to go to speed of 99. Alright. This little, at the end here, is semicolon. This is very critical to leave that semicolon alone. This is kind of like if this were a sentence for English. This is the punctuation that says, hey, the sentence is over. That must be there. Wait time. The program calls for a wait time of 5 seconds. And then stop the motor. The motor is called Steve. Alright, so here's my task main. It says, hey, here's a new program to read. This tells the computer, here's my first line of my code is coming up. Here's my first line, second line, third line. And then I have this bottom little bracket way down here just off the view. There it is. I'm just going to backspace that up so it's closed. Here's my program begins, program ends. Alright, I'm going to check for any kind of programming errors by doing the compile program button. I'm going to click, and here it says it's compiled and things went well. No major errors. My programming is done. So this will end this video, and then we'll get next part going here soon.